Hello. So I was looking back at our previous videos, and we haven't posted any new updates in 5 years, which is crazy because it doesn't seem like it's been that long. But at the same time, there's a lot that has happened. So just as a reintroduction, or if you're new to us, my name is Amy. My husband Stan and I own and operate a market farm in northeastern Pennsylvania. It is currently the beginning of February, and we actually just went through one of the coldest mornings we've seen in probably years. We had a low temperature this morning of -11 with high winds. So that gave us a wind chill of -30, probably worse than that. But anyway, so we own a market farm, northeastern Pennsylvania. Essentially, we grow assorted vegetables. We raise steelhead trout. We also have a processing kitchen where we can make value-added products. And we operate this farm year-round. In the summertime, it's a larger assortment, of course. Our specialty is hydroponic greens, and that is what we grow year-round. In the summertime, we also do hydroponic tomatoes, eggplants, peppers. We do some in-ground crops, but the hydroponic crops are our specialty. And one of the biggest changes to the farm since our last video is this right here, this greenhouse. And this probably went up shortly after those videos. It's been operational for nearly 5 years, I would say. And that's year round. It's producing year round. It never stops. And this is where all of our greens come from. So that's going to be today's video. That big update, where the hydroponic greens are coming from now, the build on this greenhouse, and all that entails. And I got a lot of ideas for videos coming in the future. I did mention the steelhead trout. We'll certainly cover that. But for now, let's go inside this greenhouse and I'll show you what's going on in there. So this greenhouse is a 30 by 72 foot greenhouse. This is a rim-all nor'easter, just like the rest of our high tunnels are. The nor'easter is really good for northern climate, the high peak, the reinforcing. It can handle the snow load. It can handle the high wind. We've even had with storms now where the snow pile has been about 4 to 5 feet up on the sidewalls, and we know we don't have to worry about that. It has the bracing and it can handle all that. This project was probably the first time that really from the get-go, we sat down before the build and said, what do we want the space to be? Previously, with a lot of other stuff, it ends up changing and adapting over time. We start using it for one thing, we change into something else. We didn't want this to be that way, so we really wanted to do it right, make it what we wanted from the beginning. And part of that really is automating as many things as possible. We knew this was going to be the hydroponic greens. We knew that was what this greenhouse was intended for. So in making things as automated as possible, we have the ventilation, which you can see at the end. You can see the big fan up at the top. And up at this end here, we have louvers on each side. They're set to a thermostat, set a certain temperature. I think right now it's set to probably about 75 degrees. That turns on automatically. The louvers at this end will open, that big fan will open, and it'll ventilate the hot air. And even this time of year when the weather is really cold, those fans are still going to run occasionally because when the sun is out, it'll get really hot in here. It'll get past 75. It'll get up into the 80s. So we have that, and that's automated, so we don't have to worry about that. Also the heat. In here we have propane modine heaters. So I'll put a picture up or a video up so that you can see those too. The larger one is what's mostly doing the heating in here. That one's enough most of the time. The smaller one on the other side, that's for backup. So when it does get really cold, we can hook that one up. It's backup for the bigger heater, and it can keep up that way. That, again, is on a thermostat. For the winter time, we're keeping the greenhouse at 63 degrees. You can go more than that, but again, you're just paying more in heating costs. We tend to stick to varieties of greens that are okay in a semi-cooler temperature. So 63 is pretty good. So we keep that temperature all winter long. The grow lights, also they're automatic. They're on a timer. So these are 1,000-watt grow lights. I believe they're each 140,000 lumens. We're running those for about 6 hours a day right now. We could run them more, but that's another one of those things where it's the cost factor. How much do you want to pay in electricity for the lighting? And are you paying so much that you've now taken the profit out of what you're selling? So I'm sure there's some adjustment there, but for us, we're doing it about 6 hours a day. It's supplemental. During a really cloudy, dark day, we'll come down and turn them on, let them run for the day, give it some extra light. But for the most part, that's automated. It's on a timer, comes on in the afternoon. They're running now. Soon, we're going to be shortening those. As the days are getting longer, we're gaining about an hour each month. So we'll be able to cut that back. And then by early mid-March, we'll be turning those off, and that'll be it for the season. So it's supplemental. The greens are still growing slower in the wintertime than they do in the summertime, of course, but it's a supplemental light, and it's enough to keep them growing. To help with the heating in here, we also have fans running at the top. You can see there's 3 of them in here now. The purpose of that is to circulate the air. If we were just running the heat in here, all that heat is going to want to rise up to the top. So to bring that heat down to where the plants are, we have those fans running, and that will keep a constant air circulation going through, even out that temperature. So you're not paying so much in heat that you're not only pushing all that heat up to the top, but trying to get that warm temperature down to the level where the plants are. So that's stirring that air, and it's keeping it in even temperature throughout the whole greenhouse. I also should mention, in the clip that I showed of the heaters in the front, you'll notice a small box that's in the center. That's CO2 generation. We have a meter on that is detecting the CO2 levels in the greenhouse. And in the wintertime, being that it's closed so much, the plants are consuming that CO2 because the fans aren't running as much. There's not as much fresh air getting changed into the greenhouse. So those CO2 levels are going down. And what we find with that is the leaves on the plants they'll get very thin. They'll thin, sort of weak leaves on that. And that's because of that. So that CO2 generator is automated. I'm not sure what the level is on that. We can set that, and that will turn on automatically. Now for what we're growing in here, this is the Kratky system, or suspended pot system, just the same as we had in the previous greenhouse. So in these are tanks raised above ground. There are, I counted, I think about 120 of them in this greenhouse, and each tank has 24 grow spaces. So that gives us the potential for over 2,800 plants that are growing all the time in various stages. So it's generally on about a 4 to 5 week turn, what's in the table itself. The simplicity of this suspended pot, the plants are sitting over top of the nutrient, which means that there's no need for aeration. It's a really simple system. So the tanks are filled with nutrient. As the plants consume that, the water level goes down. It exposes that top layer of roots to oxygen, so they get oxygenated that way, and the aeration isn't needed. What we did do to make it a lot easier to plant 120 tanks, we have a bulk tank. So under here, we left one of the table spaces empty, and underneath we have a bulk tank, which I believe is holding about 500 gallons of nutrient. So I can fill that bulk tank. We have a pump in there and a hose that I can bring around to the greenhouse, go to each one of these tanks and fill them up. So where previously we were measuring individual cup amounts for each one of the tanks, that bulk tank makes it a lot easier. I measure it once, mix it in, and then I can fill whatever we harvested for that week. Is usually planted back within 2 days. So it's always full. So you can see across the greenhouse, the plants are all in various stages. Some are going to be ready to harvest this week, and then others that just got planted in a few days ago. So there's that constant rotation. We also have a self-watering table. So there's a small nutrient tank under here. It's separate from the bulk tank that plants the rest of the tables. This is on a timer, and it runs I probably once an hour for 20 seconds or so. And then there's a drain at the one corner that will drain back to that small nutrient tank. So that's a constant flow there. In the wintertime, I usually have about 4 weeks worth of seedlings. You can see these right here are the ones that are going to get planted this week. Next week's are there, and then so on and so on. There's 2 more sets over there. Summertime, since the stuff is growing a lot faster, I won't have as many on the table. It's probably about 2 weeks that they'll be on the table because they don't need to grow as long. And then from there, they transfer into the tanks here. So, like I said, in each of the tanks, there's 24 holes. Let's see if I can get this lifted up to show the roots underneath. There you go. So you can see those roots that are growing down into that nutrient. And we only have to fill that once. So when the plants are planted, we fill it up with the nutrient. Each one of the holes has these little net cups. So we fill it up to about 1/4 inch inside the net cup. Then we put the plants in, and then we don't have to touch it after that. For the life of the plant, that's as much as they need. For most of the smaller greens, we have the same size tank. We do have some that are deeper for larger greens. We find that the bok choy and the watercress especially, they need a larger tank in order for them to get enough water, especially in the summertime where they're drinking a lot more. And if they were in the smaller tank, they would run out of nutrients. So larger greens like that need a taller tank, but for the most part, it's these smaller tanks that these smaller greens are in. In addition to the greens that are in here, I also have a small setup in the front for growing microgreens. That's also self-watering. So right now, in the shorter days, it takes about 2 weeks for most of the microgreens to grow. Summertime, it tends to only be about a week. So I can only really, it limits me in space. I do wish I had more space, but I don't have as much room to grow as much in the wintertime because it's on that 2-week growth cycle. That, like I said, automated. There is a small nutrient tank on the floor. There's a pump in there, and that pumps the nutrient up to the top tray. And you can see in the video that each one of those trays is kind of slanted. And it runs down one tray to a drain, goes to the next tray, down to a drain, and does the same thing all the way down until it goes back into that nutrient tank and cycles over again. And then I just top that off as it needs it. So that's a pretty simple system. And the microgreens are a nice add-on, especially in the wintertime when things aren't growing as fast. Even growing in 2 weeks, that's not so bad. You know, I can get a pretty good production in 2 weeks, and it gives me another product that I have at market. So I think that's going to do it for now. Like I said in the beginning, I've got a lot of ideas for updates that we want to show. A lot of things have changed in the past 5 years. I think next we're going to show the steelhead trout and how we're raising those. Really cool system on that. Leave me some comments if there's anything specifically that you'd like to see. If you just want to say hi, if you have some questions. If we get enough questions, I might do an occasional AMA where we can answer all of those. But let me know what you think. And we'll see you in the next video.